Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us on what's once again another snowy night in Iowa. But thank you for being here for our important discussion on AEAs. I'm Brooke Lovelace, the Executive Director of the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council. I know we do have a few new faces here with us tonight that may not be quite aware of what we do at the DD Council. So briefly, I know we have a short amount of time with folks today. I just want to say a few words about who we are before we get started. So the DD Council, we are a federally funded state agency that really we are charged to work to make Iowa a better place for people with disabilities and their family members. We do spend a great deal of our resources in the advocacy space. Excuse me, losing my voice already, and I just started. That's not good. We do spend a great deal of our time in our advocacy space. So some of that includes obviously advocating for people with disabilities, but where we really are more effective is helping people with disabilities and their family members be their own best advocates and making sure that their voices are being heard and how they can go about doing that and effective ways to do that, which is really a little bit about why we are here tonight, is to hear from our advocates out there about their thoughts on the AEAs. But if you're not familiar with the DD Council, we're not going to spend that much time on it today. Do check out our website, and we are on social media, so follow us on that. I also want to mention quickly that our work is guided by our 24 members of our councils who represent families and self-advocates. And I think many of them are here with us today too. But so now let's get started with really why we're here tonight. Again, thanks for being here. And I want to really give a shout out for our 3 family advocates that are hosting our event with us today, Emma, Heather, and Wendy, and you're going to hear from them shortly. But I do now want to turn it over to our public policy manager, Carlin Crow, who will talk a little bit about what the purpose is for us tonight, and then to go over some ground rules to make sure we can have effective discussion. So looking forward to visiting with you guys tonight. And again, welcome. Carlin, over to you.
Thanks, Brooke. And I would like to welcome you all too. And thank you for being here, because we are here to hear from you. And so we're so excited that you've joined us, and look forward to your comments and what we can gain from this town hall. And as Brooke mentioned, we as an organization are working to bring the voices of those most affected by policy to the table. And that's one of the reasons that we are hosting this town hall, is because it feels like the legislative proposal that has been put together regarding the AEAs and special education in Iowa, perhaps there might be some voices who were missing when that particular proposal was put together. So we thought it would be helpful to invite anyone who would like to make comment about the legislative proposal by Governor Reynolds. And there are 2 bills now going through the legislature, and we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all that. But for you to have to make comments based on your experience, whether that's as a family member, as a self-advocate, as a educator, a school employee, whatever. If it affects you, we want to hear about it, and that's why we're here. So this is a platform for you, and we have a couple different ways that you can make comment. We're offering you to make comment on the town hall meeting tonight, and then we have written comments and a way that you can link to those, and we'll get to that in just a second. But I do need to go through our ground rules, although I think we're first going to talk about the agenda. Yeah, let's go through this real quickly so you know what to expect tonight. So we welcome you, welcome again. We'll talk about expectations and ground rules, and then I'll introduce our hosts and tell you about who our invited speakers are. We invited some speakers to kind of set the context for what you might be able to then comment on tonight. We are not going to have probably a lot of time for Q&A. If you do have questions, you can put them in the chat, and then we will call on those at the end as we have time. But first, we want to hear all your comments first. And the other thing is we might not have answers to all of your questions, which is why at the bottom it says questions if time allow. If we do, we will certainly also, if we're not able to answer them on this call, we will follow up with questions that came up and follow up in an email afterwards. So, but really we want to be here to hear your comments. And also we will hear the comments from our invited speakers first. So, okay, though back to the ground rules, just so we make sure that we flow easily tonight through our town hall. If you can click to the next slide, Emily, and thank you, Emily, for being behind the scenes and working all the technology. So again, this is your platform to share. We want to hear your comments, and we want you to also to learn from each other. And we're here to learn from you too. So we want to learn what we should be talking about with our advocates, and all of you as advocates, or as we hope you are advocates. Maybe talk about things that you could be talking about, and then learn from each other too, and learn about the ways that this particular proposal may be affecting you. So each speaker, this is including our hosts and our invited speakers, are limited to 3 minutes, so we can get through as many comments as possible. You're all doing a great job on this already, but please stay muted while others are speaking, so we don't have problems with background noise. And if you want to make a comment, and you can start doing it now, put your name in the chat, and then we will go through in order who asked to make a comment, and that's how we'll get to you when we get to comment time from participants. When your name does come up, our host Wendy will call on you. So as soon as your name comes up, be ready to unmute, turn on your camera, because we want to see you if you're comfortable with that, and if all possible. And remember that you have 3 minutes, and we do have a timer, Heather, who may cut you off and say, "Oh, time's up," just so we can move on as quickly as possible. And most importantly, we want to treat each other with respect and not have disruptive behavior. Again, this is not a it's not a debate. It's not a protest. We can do one of those later on if we need to organize those. Maybe we can solicit some other hosts from this group. But we really, again, want to gather comments and experiences and stories so that we can move those on. You can share them with each other and your legislators, lawmakers, even your schools. And also we want to be able to share them with our lawmakers too as we're moving forward. So that's why we're here again. Q&A we'll save for the end, and hopefully have time for that. And in the meantime, we will also put the link to written comments in the chat, so you can also be filling that out during the talk tonight too. So on to our speakers and our hosts. We have 3 super mom advocate hosts tonight who have pulled this town hall together in a very short time frame. I'll introduce them separately here shortly, and then Emma will be introducing our invited speakers. And just wanted to point out who our invited speakers are, and why we invited them, and who we invited who declined or who couldn't make it. We've invited 2 lawmakers, Representative Josh Turek from Council Bluffs and Representative Brent Segrist from Council Bluffs. It's just coincidence that they're both from Council Bluffs. We invited them because they have unique experience on these topics and in this arena. So they just happen to be from that area of the state. Michelle Johnson from the Iowa Association of School Boards, Mark Schneider, who is a retired superintendent and was a former chair of our Iowa DD Council, and Riley, who's a special education teacher. We also invited a representative from the AEAs to speak, and they declined. The Department of Education declined. The governor's office declined, all for various reasons that make sense to them. So we can send your comments on to them. And so your voices will be heard to them also. So I'm going to move right along and introduce our first host. Hopefully I got through all I needed to tell you. Maybe one thing, when we get to the comment section, if you have already heard a comment that's similar to what you're going to say, maybe save yours for the end or put it in the written comment section, just so we can get as many perspectives as possible tonight. So thank you for your attention to our ground rules, and I'll thank our host for making me be the bad teacher that had to go through those. So on to our hosts again. I want to introduce first Emma Boza from Hawarden, who is also a member of our DD Council and who is an educator, as well as her husband. And she's going to tell us her experiences first and kind of set the tone for how our event will flow tonight, comment-wise. Take it away, Emma.
Real quick before I get going though, did Representative Segrist make it in? Do we know? Anybody?
I'll watch for him.
Okay. I just saw in the chat that he was waiting somewhere patiently. Okay, as Carlin said, my name is Emma Boza, and I'm from Hawarden. I have a child on an IEP. For those not familiar with this term, it stands for Individualized Education Program. An IEP is developed by identifying present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, developing well-written goals, and determining effective progress monitoring strategies, determining the least restrictive environment and additional considerations, and determining how this data will be reported to parents. So I think it stands to say this is a very individualized document. Still, it's an important reminder that it's individualized. My husband and I both work at a public school, and both of our children have benefited from AEA services. Our oldest is a sophomore at West Sioux and has been in the Talented and Gifted program since elementary school. But she has received AEA speech services after a requested evaluation. And with those provided services, she made huge gains in her speech. We also have a 13-year-old daughter in 6th grade. She also has Down syndrome. If there's an available service for special ed, I'm pretty confident she has used it. Speech, OT, PT, hearing services, hearing aid checks, and FBA, which is a functional behavior analysis. As a public school employee, I've taken several trainings, from the mandatory bloodborne pathogens to a multi-day autism training to MANT training. I'm currently enrolled in a class for parents called Powerful Tools for Caregivers. And next month, I am signed up to take my sub-authorization class. But one of the biggest under the radar services is the evidence-based math instruction. Ruby, as I said, is in 6th grade. She's currently doing grade level math, multiplying and dividing fractions, decimals, etc. But she has some lower grade standard gaps that the AEA has provided training for her teachers to be trained in. And that's called the Numeracy Project. This is a program that fills those gaps. Skills such as counting by fives or skip counting or counting backwards. So as you can see, the AEA has played a vital role in my family's life. Honestly, more than I can truly express in the short time given here. And we are forever grateful for all the services they have provided.
And we're just about out of time, Emma.
Well, that's good, because that is all I have. So then next up is going to be Wendy Anderson.
Okay, so I have 3 children. My son Dexter is 14. He has a rare genetic disorder, epilepsy, autism, and intellectual delays. Phoebe is 10, autism, dyslexia, ADHD, and Brexley is 8, who's neurotypical. The rationale for this bill has been focused around test scores and not whether the students are getting the actual support that they need. Many special education parents, including myself, would agree that a standardized test score is not any indication of my child's ability or needs. Many students are not getting the supports they need, including my children, And because of this, we have had to homeschool them, with my son dual enrolling only for specially designed instruction. The lack of supports is a failure of
Did
the
you put the bananas under the cabinet?
I did.
You did that?
Hey,
What
everybody,
was that thought process?
just a quick reminder to please mute your lines while while our speakers are talking. Thank you.
The lack of supports is a failure of the state and not the AEAs. We need access to special education in Iowa, but not to move everything to the State Department of Ed, because it's clear there's already a lack of oversight and knowledge of what's actually going on in the schools. The AEA is who I contact when I need something. They're supportive, knowledgeable, and willing to help make things happen for the students. The last 14 years has really been a long fight to get my family the services that they not only need, but are entitled to. And I honestly can't imagine the new battles that we will have to face if this bill passes.
Next, Heather Sievers is our other host that will give comment.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. So I'm Heather Sievers. I am a nurse by background. I'm currently a safety and quality manager. And so my life is pretty much about advocating for quality of services and really just ensuring that our communities have what they need. So this is really why I founded Advocates for Iowa's Children, and why I'm proud really to be here as a host, because that's what I want to do, is advocate for our children and our schools, our teachers, the AEA, and for my daughter, Rowan. She has a rare genetic disability called Smith-Magenis syndrome. And she's really been fighting for many years through lots of struggles in her life, and has global developmental delays, which really just means, I'm sure most of you on here know what that means, but just kind of across the board needs. And so the AEA really has shown up for our family since Rowan was an infant, and really helping us navigate a really complex system. Even as a nurse, it was very difficult, it just really daunting. And so it really helped her overcome so many challenges up front. So as a nurse, I know how important early intervention is, and the AEA showed up above and beyond to really help Rowan get into school on time. She's walking, she's starting to verbalize speech. She learned to swallow her food with the AEA. The list really does go on. And so part of why I wanted to be here today, I've really been tracking what's going on, and there have been millions and millions of cuts in dollars that go to funding for our special education and our AEAs over the last couple of decades. And this has me concerned. So with this last legislative session, we had a cut of about 30 million above what our expected cuts were. And that's why this town hall is important to me, to really help people get a seat at this table and share your perspective. So I really believe in preservation of the AEAs and all of the services that many of the schools and teachers cannot receive any other way. And so these proposals really impact the services that are available, especially in our rural communities. I do believe in increasing our teacher salaries, and I want our schools and children really to have everything that they need so that our children really can grow up to be their best selves, but also importantly, to have their best chances of becoming key contributors in our communities, becoming part of our workforce. This is really important tonight, and mostly more than hearing myself talk, I really am excited to hear everyone else here speak. And I'm here tonight just really to support everybody, support everybody's voice, as Carlin said, get a seat at the table where maybe we didn't have one before, and help bring these perspectives forward to advocate for all of you here today. Thank you.
Everyone, I think we reached our Zoom limit, so we are working on fixing that right now as far as number of participants. Emily's working on that behind the scenes. We did get Representative Segerston, it looks like, so we will have our speakers hopefully, and if you have people who are contacting you to try and get in, just tell them to keep trying. We're working on it. So that's good news, and apologies for not quite being ready for having so many people. So thank you again for being here. Emma, you want to go ahead and introduce our invited speakers?
Yes, this is Emma. Next up will be Representative Josh Turek from Council Bluffs.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to the DD Council for doing this, and thank you all for being so involved and civically engaged. For those of you who don't know me, Representative Josh Turek out of Council Bluffs. I was also born with spina bifida and the sole permanently disabled member up here in the Iowa House, and something that I'm very passionate about is representing individuals and children with disabilities or special needs. So this is a bill that I've been paying very close attention to and doing as much work as I can to fight for the children with disabilities and for the AEAs. I think with a bill this large, it's really important for all of us to be on the same page at first. So I'm just going to walk through a couple of things about what the initial bill did and where we are with it. 133 pages. It's HSB 542. Essentially what it'll do is eliminate all services beyond special ed. It would also replace executive directors of special ed. They would end up replacing the AEA directors. It would remove all AEAs from boards and commissions. It would eliminate operational sharing. It would remove $37 million from property taxes for ed services. It would also remove $33 million of property taxes for media services. And it will shift $2 million in professional development from AEAs to the Department of Ed. And it would shift $3.3 million in mental health funding to the Department of Ed. Along with this, as we've mentioned in this, teacher salaries would increase, starting teacher salaries from $33,000 to $50,000 starting, and $62,500 for teachers with 12 years experience. Now, the good news is with this, where we sit right now today, I don't know if any of you ended up seeing the governor's statement on this. There has been an enormous amount of outcry from all of you and all around the state for the AEAs and for the service it provides. This is the only bill that I've ever dealt with where every single email that I have received is in favor of the AEAs. And the governor's statement recognizes that they moved too fast on this and that it was a bit too egregious. And so there has been a lot of evolution that has taken place on this bill. And I will leave the majority of that to Representative Segrist to talk about where we are. But the bill as it's currently written is certainly not what we're going to end up seeing. And I want to, again, thank all of you, because it's only because of the outcry from all of you around the state that we're going to end up seeing these changes.
Thank you, Representative Turek. Up next, we have Representative Segrist from Council Bluffs.
Actually, excuse me, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
I finally got on. That was a process. I even started 5 minutes before the start because I usually screw this up, but this one I don't think was my fault. Happy to be here and thank you and thanks to Representative Turek. He and I actually have talked about this quite a bit. And he's kind of explained where it's at right now. For whatever reason, the governor, as another step in her streamlining bill, wanted to bring the AEAs totally under the control of the Department of Education. I would contend they're already there, but that was kind of the impetus behind the bill. I have kind of a unique perspective on it because I spent 15 years as the executive director of the area education agency system from 03 to 2018 after I left the legislature the first time. And then I'm back in the legislature. I ran again in 2020 when my old seat opened up and I had a brain fart and decided to run again. And so now I'm back in it. But I do understand the AA system probably better than anybody at the Capitol. And even I don't fully understand all the services that are offered. So she introduced this bill, which would make massive changes to the AA system. The AA system can make some changes. They can do some things much better than they do now, although they do a really, I think, really good job. But for whatever reason, she has gone after them pretty heavily. My understanding is she didn't take much time talking to the AEAs through this process, but presented the bill. The feedback from all of you on this call, as well as many people over the state, was pretty instantaneous and fierce. And so the governor did today say, hey, we need to revamp some of this. I'm not certainly telling you that the bill is something that you're going to like yet, but there is some improvements in the bill. I haven't seen the amendment yet, but what I can tell you is that this has slowed it down considerably. We're not going to be moving this bill, in the next week and probably not in the next couple of weeks. So there's still going to be time for you all to really weigh in on what's going on. I think her impetus is twofold. One, she really doesn't like the administrative ranks of the AEAs and the salaries that some of them are being paid. We can address that issue if need be. And she is not happy with the special education scores. And when you compare them nationally, they are lower than they should be. And so the AA system and the local education, local school districts need to do a better job of that. So she has kind of put this all in one big mixing bowl, if you will, and there's some significant opposition to it. One of the things she would like to do is to move it to a fee-for-service plan. There are, I think, 42 states that have something similar to the area education agencies. Many of them are fee-for-service, where the district gets the money and then they can buy the services that they'd like to purchase and so on. That does give you an advantage, I think, to the largest schools. In the other states, they're going to kowtow a little bit more to the larger schools because that's how they're going to get the money to be able to continue to run their business. When the AEAs were established back in, I think, 1974, part of this situation was they decided, number one, they exempted Des Moines totally from the special ed part. That's the decision they made in 74. And then all the rest of the money goes into a pot, which kind of allows you to have a parity of services. Some of your rural schools that don't have as many students or as much money should get a better level of service because the money's kind of spread around. Some people, including the governor and many of your large school districts, they say, give us the money and let us do it if we want to, or use the AEAs if we want to. I think that would result in some lessening of services for our rural schools, and depending on how many people maybe went another direction and not using the AEAs could hinder and maybe destroy the AEA system. I'm not saying that would happen, but that's one of the issues we're facing right now is what to do with that money, and should it stay with the AEAs or should you give schools choices? The other one is educational services, which is reading and tutoring and a whole group of things that Representative Turek mentioned, mental health and those types of things, as well as media and technology services. Those are funded and have been since 1974 by the property tax levy. It's never gone up. Whatever they set it at 50 years ago, that's where it's still at, but it's about $68 million. That has caused a lot of outcry too, because the original bill would have just eliminated that. And that's wrong. That's not feasible. So she has backed off on that a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what she wants to do with that. But those services are extremely important to all our districts. And if you were to, let's just say for the educational services, if you were to say, and maybe we may need to do what I'm about to say just to kind of get a feel for how that fee for service would work. But if you were to say, let's give that money directly to the school districts and then they can purchase those services, that might give us an indication if that would work very well or not. But I think what would happen is many of your smaller school districts, they're not going to be able to afford to hire some people to do educational services. And what they would probably do is they team up with two.
And Representative Segrist, we do need to move forward so that we can make sure that we get a couple of people. And it looks like you froze a little bit there, but we do need to move forward with our next speaker. So thank you so much for joining, and we
both parties
welcome you to stay.
There's a lot of resistance to that because there's some skepticism whether the Department of Education could actually handle that. She wants to bring a bunch of the jobs into Des Moines, more centralize it, and a lot of people don't want to have that happen. So those are kind of the three issues. What I can tell you is people, and I because of my background with the AEAs, I have people stopping by my desk all day talking to me about it. The things that you are doing are having a real impact on the legislature. And so we'll kind of flesh out what the governor is saying in her newest proposal. I think there's probably still problems there, but we're going to continue to work. And I would tell you this, the AEA system can be better. And I think maybe in the final run here, just something for you to know, when you think about the administrators and the chief administrators and the salaries, and I know all those people, I think you may see a final version where we have 9 AEAs now. When I was the executive director, we had 15. We cut down to 9. And I think you may see it go down lower than that. And I think you can do that and not hurt services. Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt. I really appreciate everything that you're saying too. And if you have some additional things you want to share in the chat with us, I would love that. I do want to make sure we have some time to get some of our other speakers to
Yeah,
share,
that's fine.
comment, and then open up, and really appreciate you joining today. And sorry, the technology was a little tough in the beginning. So thanks for hanging in there with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Segrist. Next speaker we have is Michelle Johnson, and she is from the Iowa Association of School Boards. Michelle.
Hi, excuse me. Thanks for letting me join tonight. Yeah, so I work at the Iowa Association of School Boards. We represent school board members across the state of Iowa. So we have been hearing from a lot of school districts this week on the importance of the services that they receive from the AEAs, specifically in the education and media services area, because that is what the original bill did cut out. There's a lot of things that even I didn't realize, as Representative Segrist said, there's a lot of things the AEAs do and how they work that I think a lot of people don't know. For example, the crisis response teams that are sent out to districts when there is a crisis, that comes from the AEA. Social workers, AEA employees filling in when a superintendent or a school employee has to take a leave of absence when they can't find anyone else to fill those positions. So the special education services are very important. And I know there is some concern from school districts that it'll be more centralized at the Department of Education as the bill is written now. But those education and media services are what's really important to school districts that they receive to then in turn help students. So that's really what we've been encouraging our members to advocate on. Yes, many legislators have said they've received a ton of emails this week, which is great. A lot of people are advocating on this and they understand the importance of services. So from my perspective, in the school district setting, it's definitely the services that the AEAs provide to staff at school districts that then they can in turn use to serve students. So as has been said already, you know, the governor's bill as it is now is not going to be the final bill, of course. She has kind of backed off on completely eliminating those educational and media services. I think someone had a question about what fee for service means. That just means the school district would get the money and then they can pay the AEA or someone else to provide those services. In most rural school districts, that's going to be the AEA. That's kind of the big important reason the AEAs were created, is to provide those services, especially in rural Iowa where it's hard to find them anywhere else. So that's kind of what a fee for service system would look like. Again, that's kind of what we think she's leaning towards, but aren't 100% sure. So that's just my perspective from the school district side. Your advocacy is great, and please keep reaching out. Any services that you know of, legislators probably haven't heard about it. So it's always good for them to learn the services that the AEAs provide. So thanks for letting me on tonight.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Up next is Mark Schneider, who is a retired superintendent from the Mid-Prairie Community School District.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invitation, Brooke, to come tonight and speak. As you know, it's going to be hard for me to even introduce myself within 3 minutes, but I'll talk fast and try. To correct an error, I was never the chair of the DD Council. I was on the DD Council for 6 years, but I was never the chair. I was in education for 41 years, retired a year and a half ago. For 34 of those years, I was at Mid-Prairie Community School District, which is south of Iowa City. And I was a teacher there, an elementary principal there, and then the superintendent for the last 21 years of my career. The reason I was on the DD Council, though, wasn't because I was an educator. It was because I was a father. My 34-year-old son was born with autism, and obviously because of his special needs, he was involved extensively with special ed services provided not only by Mid-Prairie, but also by the Grant Wood AEA. He is a productive member of society. He has a job that he gets paid for. He goes to work 5 days a week. And he obviously did that because of the services he received. Now, I know you may hear that, well, we're going to keep the special ed function of the AEAs. But keep in mind that Eric received a lot of services outside that special education function. And a lot of those have been talked about. And I see my good friend Joel Peterson is here tonight, and maybe he'll speak about the AEA services. But just to give you an idea, I was in Central Iowa today, and I, on a different reason, but I was talking to a superintendent, and obviously we got talking about this subject, and he was telling me that they have identified, his district and the AEA have identified 51 programs that will cease to exist, that they will have access to if this law is in effect. And again, I'm glad to see that it's going to be changed, but because of my 41-year career in education under a legislature that has been both Republican and democratically controlled, call me skeptical, okay? I liken this to what recently happened at my house. My wife said, I really would like to replace the kitchen floor. And I said to her, well, let's just burn the house down because that will get you a new kitchen floor. Now, I truthfully didn't say that to her, and you would have rightly thought I was an idiot had I said that to you, because you're not going to make small improvements by burning an excellent structure down that has a proven track record of excellence. And the other thing that has concerned me tonight, just hearing about the changes that want to be made, they want to bring more control to Des Moines. They want things controlled from Des Moines. I think both political parties have taken pride that Iowa is a local control state. And I agree that Iowa should remain a local control state. What works best at Mid-Prairie isn't going to be what works best in Iowa City or works best in Des Moines or what works best at Central. Okay.
And Mark,
or
I have the hard job of kind of cutting
okay.
people off when we pass our minutes, but I really appreciate what you said tonight, and thank you for your passion and your service and education. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. I feel bad that you got cut off. I wish we had more time for everybody. Up next was supposed to be Riley Venort. She is a special ed teacher at West Sioux. She's also a mother to a newborn and toddler, so life happened and she couldn't make it tonight. But I am going to read a post that she wrote earlier this month. Being a special education teacher can be extremely challenging some days. During some of my hardest moments, it was a person from the AEA who helped to provide resources and support. It was a speech and language pathologist from the AEA who taught me how to effectively use an augmentative and alternative communication device to help my nonverbal student read and communicate for the first time. It was an occupational therapist from the AEA who provided me with so many resources to help my student learn to type on a device, tie shoes, cut paper, and successfully handle a hard situation because all their sensory needs had been assessed and were finally being met. It was a physical therapist from the AEA who taught me how to safely move my wheelchair-bound student from the wheelchair to the floor to participate with her class, as well as to their standers so they could stand with their classmates. It was a social emotional best practice coach from the AEA who sat with me for countless hours as we collected data, created a functional behavior assessment, and implemented a behavior intervention plan. Because of this, the student was able to successfully participate with their peers and find success in academics. It was a specially designed instruction best practice coach who taught me how to align my instruction to my goals, how to write goals that are specific, ambitious, and attainable. It was this person who helped me access curriculum in order for my students to be successful. It was a strategist from the AEA that sat with me in my very first IEP meeting, providing support and encouragement. It was a strategist who listened to my concerns and helped me get my student the support they needed. All of these people have made me into the special education teacher that I am today. Every one of them provided me with knowledge, resources, and constant support. I never stopped learning from the highly intelligent staff at the AEA, and I know that I could not do my job successfully without them. I pray that our schools do not lose the programs and support from the AEA in this bill because it will drastically change the way we are able to support students who just learn differently than you and me. I believe that is all. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. This is Carlin Crow again. We do have an addition to our invited speakers. Director of the Iowa Department of Education, Mackenzie Snow, is with us. And so, Director Snow, we will give you the floor here and you have your 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I apologize for the delay my travel and the weather caused, but just appreciate the opportunity to hear feedback and unique perspectives from each of the dedicated individuals on this town hall, and also appreciate everyone's dedication to our shared priority of ensuring that we are closing and narrowing achievement gaps that are experienced by students with disabilities across the state of Iowa. So again, here to benefit from your expertise and perspectives, and appreciate the opportunity to be with you all.
Thank you, Director Snow. Thanks for joining us again. Now I think we can move on to our public comment period, and I'm going to turn it over to Wendy, who's keeping track of our list.
I've got the list going, so if anyone else wants to do public comment, go ahead and just put your name in the chat and I will add you to the list. I will call you. I don't think I'm going to be able to find you to ask you to unmute, but I'll just call your name. So first up, we have Joel Peterson from the Central Rivers AEA.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be here tonight. Honestly, listening to all of you, the posts that you've done allows me to keep doing what I'm doing. As Brent mentioned, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those chief administrators that they talk about. I've been on the job for 6 months. I was a superintendent, a teacher, a coach, and moved to Cedar Falls 6 months ago. So when you hear about them, you can get a hold of me because I'm one of those people that they talk a lot about. I care about kids. I've cared about kids my whole career. I'm in my 25th year in education. And I certainly just don't know why. I don't know why we are doing this. The system was created in 1974, 50-year anniversary, because exactly why it was created, because we didn't have equitable services across the state. Some cities have better services than others. The code said in 1974, media, ed services, and special education. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. We'd like to be at the table. We'd like to be able to come up with ideas, and that's been challenging. I was a student that received AEA services from, I know I look really young, but in the 80s, I received speech and language services, and I wouldn't be here today without teachers caring about me and all that. The other thing that I want you to know, and this is important, and I actually shared this with Director Snow today, and I really appreciated her talking to us today as chief administrators. This action, this political action, comes at a cost. I have employees that are crying. I have employees that are going to other jobs. I have employees that don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know why this is happening when we're not perfect, but we really are doing good things for kids. We're not like anybody else in the nation. But that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that we're different. Culture is an unintended consequence of all this action. There are people's lives being impacted by this, which is impacting your students and your children, because they can't come in every day being focused solely on what they do, because the anxiety and the stress and the mental health impact of this. We are there. We are there when a student passes away. We are there when they need to talk to someone. We are there when the superintendent needs something, they call me. We are there over and over and over again. This system will change that. It'll be very difficult to maintain that one. And honestly, it was built for efficiencies, economical, and also equitable. If schools decide 1 year to be in and 1 year to be out, we cannot staff that. I don't know how we would even be able to do that. I might not be there to do it anyway if we follow the proposed bill, but there's no way to us to make sure that every rural school gets everything that they need when we have schools opting in and opting out. The system's not perfect. The system's awesome.
Joel, thank you so much. I really appreciate your comment, and thank you for sharing today.
Thank you. Next up, we have Catherine Hahn.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here to talk to you. I actually am a parent. I was a parent of a young man back in the 90s and had his whole career through school, and was served by the AEAs and became an AEA PT at the time because of the services that we were receiving and because of the difficulty that we were having finding services in the private section. And really the people that impacted his life were the people here locally and the AEA people that we worked with. You know, everybody was sort of a rock star at different times, but there were different times there were lots of obstacles. And at that, you know, one of the things in this bill proposes that, you know, the local districts can now buy, but it is the AEA professionals right now that have the best understanding of what the law says and what school districts have to provide. And had it not been for the AEAs, when we were going through that process, I would have probably had more than one lawsuit filed against the state of Iowa for, you know, not being in compliance with his IEP. But it was the AEA personnel that managed to work with and get everybody to the table and do that. So I just want to tell you that from a personal perspective. I actually have tried to look at the bill and figure out what's going on, and it's breaking my heart on many levels, because someone had said it's reminiscent of what happened to the HCBS waiver system, and it clearly is. You cannot do fee for service. I just want to read you a couple comments that I had written in a letter to my legislators, and I just said, you know, the work done by the regional AAs in collaboration with the local school districts currently is under guidance and oversight of the Iowa Department of Education and the Iowa State Board of Education, and has led really to a multidisciplinary approach, which addresses the need of children being served in Iowa's public and accredited private schools. So you have to liken it to a complete jigsaw puzzle. The bill currently, as it's proposed, does not reform the ADA to improve services for children served, but dismantles the current system and places all decision-making and resources within control of the Iowa State Department of Education, because they've eliminated the governance boards, any local and regional involvement in the decision-making process. It breaks the current system that's working effectively, efficiently, and equitably for all size school districts in both urban and rural areas. The proposed plan is like breaking complete the parts of a jigsaw puzzle and attempting to put it back together while throwing most of the pieces away and putting all the rest of the pieces in the hands of one entity, the Iowa Department of Education. In the business world, this would be considered a hostile takeover because they're actually assuming all the assets of the AEA, terminating our chief administrators, and limiting our decision governance boards as outlined in the current laws that exist.
Catherine, thank
Yeah.
you so much. I'm trying to keep everybody to that kind of 2 to 3 minute,
Okay.
and I appreciate that. And if there's more comment, we want to take more comment. I just want to give everybody the opportunity to speak. Thank you. Thank you for your bravery to speak up tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Chad Webb, you are next, please. Oh, I'll ask you to mute here. Unmute.
Hello, how's everybody doing? Good. So I want to say, I can tell you why the governor is doing what she's doing. Because all those services are great for teachers that work there with their kids that have disabilities. I know this because I see it. I'm active. I have to be. Because parents that speak up and they file like state complaints because, for instance, I'll speak on my personal experiences, because I didn't feel that 15 minutes a week for speech therapy was enough for my child who's nonverbal and a victim of physical and sexual abuse before he came to live with me in 2020. I didn't feel that, so I went ahead and filed a complaint. I did this all civilly. I still work with the teachers at the school. I am desperately trying to help them understand, you know, what's going on at home with my child. So because of that, I now can't find daycare services for my child. So this is an issue. The governor knows this is an issue. I'm not saying I agree with the governor on everything she does. I agree with half. So I am a huge critic of the governor and the current legislative body here. But at the same time, it's politics. You know, I had a false accusation made against me at a place in child serve, right? That's a great place. I don't want to sit here and talk about how bad that place is, because it's an awesome place. I remember my son, the first day he went there, he loved it. It's big, it's huge. These people are awesome. But because I filed a complaint, a state complaint, which is a protected right, because I filed that complaint, I was retaliated against. And I have plenty of proof for this. The Iowa Civil Rights Commission doesn't apply the law. I don't know why. And unless you got about $5,000 or $6,000 to pay for a lawyer to go ahead and do your own lawsuits in a civil, in a civil suit, then you are at a huge disadvantage.
And Chad, I'd have to be the person that kind of keeps giving people another opportunity, but thank you for speaking up. And I hear that you're hoping for some reform with how things are delivered.
Yes.
And
one last thing
we'll take that
about education. I think these kids, the most important thing that could be done for free is to start educating K through 12 about what disabilities is and what the responsibility of these kids and their peers have to these kids. Because if they're not taught that, the taxpayers suffer, because that's what's happening. The taxpayers pay more money, and that's how it is.
Thank you, Chad. Carlin.
Hi, everyone. Again, we have another leadership, a person in leadership who wants to make a comment, and it is a question that we have had and has come up a lot about the distinction with special education and services that are provided. And Kelly Garcia is here from, she's the director of Iowa Health and Human Services. And Dr. Garcia, we would appreciate hearing from you and clarifying on that. It hasn't been a question, but clarifying that distinction and definition about services would be greatly helpful. So invite you to speak, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Hope it looks like everybody's home and safe on this snowy evening. And thanks so much for the invite, Brooke, for us to be here tonight. We've got our disability director, Zach Ryan, on, our state Medicaid director, Liz Matney. Liz is in my screen. She can give a little wave here. And some of y'all might have been on her town hall earlier this evening. It's obviously super important to us that we make sure that everyone understands kind of the clarifying pieces of how potential legislative changes and the governor's initiative interact with our system. And so just to be clear, there are services that we work with on a variety of different spaces. Of course, Medicaid services. We also oversee in our agency children and child welfare. And so there are some significant places where, much like what Mr. Webb just said, we see some challenges in working directly with AEAs to ensure that those services are provided to individuals who need them. There are some spaces in the state, for example, where the AEA bars a provider that a parent would like their child to receive from coming in the school. And so Medicaid is a payer in that space and provides that service. So if that middle layer were removed from this particular piece of legislation moving forward, that Medicaid service would still be provided as a school-based service in Iowa. And I think that's a really important clarifying point for tonight's conversation and moving forward as we think about any changes that are contemplated with this legislation. But again, really significant feedback tonight. We obviously have an extreme interest in ensuring that Iowa's youth with disabilities have all of the services and supports that they need to live and thrive in Iowa. So thanks again.
Thank you, Kelly, for allowing us to speak up and share tonight, and for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Hannah Duncan, you're next. Hannah? Okay, we'll move Hannah down the list. Savannah Haire, H-A-I-R-E.
Hi, that's me.
Hi.
So I am new to this whole special needs mama thing. I'm a teacher. I avoided everything to do with SPED because I thought I'd never need it. And now I have a daughter who has Down syndrome. She has tetralogy of Fallot, an AV canal defect. She's all the things. She's super extra and awesome. This is Rook, her baby brother. She just turned 2, actually. Anywho, so I am a part of the Akron-Westfield School District in Northwest Iowa. And I guess, like, obviously, I don't know all the things that there is to know about AEA, but my daughter 110% uses their services. So I guess, like, I'm just curious as far as, like, the legislatures in the future as they're trying to, like, whittle down this bill and figure out life, apparently. So if the school is going to potentially bring in their own professionals would we have a say in who those professionals are that the school is bringing in? Because, for example, if I don't like my daughter's physical therapist through AEA, I have another choice. But if we go like this fee for service route and I just, like, Jane, I think you're a turd. I don't like the way you talk to my kid, whatever. Like, do I have a say in firing her? Like, I'm curious about that. Like, have you kind of thought about that? And then like, who would be overseeing like recommendations? So who is going to be overseeing my daughter's case? Like, you know what? She is a little like weak in her right side. I mean, if you have 47 other kids that you're trying to figure out services for as a small school district, like which Akron is, that worries me that either A, my daughter who is going to be very intensive and needs like a bunch of help, like, are they going to push her to the wayside? Or on the flip side, are they going to focus so much on her that other kids who need those services would not get them? And then I'm just concerned, like, it feels like the school is going to be asked to triage a whole lot of things. And I just feel like somebody had mentioned earlier, like this could be a really easy way for our kids to kind of slip through the cracks one way or the other, whether you're like one of those really needy kids like my kid is, or maybe one of those kids who could really benefit from those AEA services. And then like I had mentioned in the chat just a while ago, like, our small schools don't see kids like Raina every day. So are they going to have the know-how without a little bit of oversight from AEA who sees kids like my daughter all the time to know what exactly to look for to help her? So those are some of my concerns. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for that, Savannah. And I can align with some of your questions as well too. So thank you, and we'll bring those forward.
Thank you, Savannah.
It looks
I have to interrupt one more time because we timed this for an hour, and so we have 2 more minutes left. And the big challenge with that is we're going to lose our ASL interpreter. So we can stay on for another 30 minutes informally and continue to take comments. But if we need somebody who needs ASL interpretation, we're going to give them the opportunity to ask a question first. And Wendy, how many more people are on the list?
I have 4 people on the list right now.
Okay, so we're doing pretty good. We're just going to go over a little bit.
Yep. Is there anybody, Pam, Liz, Josephine, or Barb, did you need the interpreter? If anybody does, just speak up, please.
No.
Okay. Thank you. So Pam Vogel, you are next on the list.
Yes, thank you for holding this meeting. It's so important. And I'll be quick. So here's my experience, and Joel and Mark and so many who have just articulated this very well. I have 35 years of experience. I was a special education teacher, and then I worked as a curriculum director in several schools, a principal. I also worked for the AEA probably 15 years ago for a few years, went to become a superintendent in rural Iowa, and then went to become a superintendent in Connecticut. And I can tell you that I've always used the AEAs for all their resources. As a special educator, as a teacher, I did that. As a curriculum director, we needed those resources. When I went to Connecticut, what I found is we did have to pay for use for any of our ed services. So we had to pay if we wanted a consultant to come in and work with our teachers and do professional development. What we didn't have, we had no special education services provided to us. So I had 7 school districts that I was superintendent for, and we had to hire our own school, our speech and language pathologists, our school psychologists, our OTs, our PTs, and we spent in 7 school districts in rural Connecticut, 275 square miles, over $1 million every year just to hire these professionals. And so when I came back to Iowa and I retired as a superintendent a couple of years ago, I now work as just a substitute special ed consultant for the agency. And I travel many miles to do my job just as a sub. I'm going to retire from that this year, so I'm not trying to save my job. I'm just saying how valuable the AEAs are. And what I recognized when I went out of state was that very thing. When I came back to Iowa, I realized how valuable our resources are equitable. We don't have very differences between just areas of the state, and we need that local control. If we don't have this, We will lose these professionals. They will go to other places, and we will not have those experts that we need to come into our schools and work with our kids.
Thank you, Pam. I really appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Pam. Liz Cook, if you are here.
Yes, hi. I'm a mama from Dubuque, Iowa. I do not have the accolades of all the people on here. I just have a 4-year-old son that needed help. I'm a numbers geek that sits behind a computer all day long. But thank you to all of you that care about the children of Iowa. My son is 4 years old. His name is Logan. He had a pretty significant speech delay. We first discovered at age 2, and we were teamed up with Keystone and had early development staff evaluate him and determine that he did have a delay. So he was a COVID baby, stay at home only child. And we were navigating what we could do. We were doing our best. It didn't matter how competent of an adult I was. I couldn't get my child to speak. He could not talk. He was saying one words here and there or sounds. I learned with these individuals that early intervention is key. I don't know where Logan would be here today if we didn't have this assistance. And not only that, the integration into the school. So he was able to attend 4-year-old preschool at age 3 as part of the services. And us not knowing what to do when we were navigating here, we were just handheld right off to the school. And to my surprise, had the IEP meeting with the principal, the teacher, and it was this coordinated effort of this team that cared about my child and what was going on with my child when I had no idea what I was doing. So it's already a stressful situation, and have it be seamless and painless from these individuals. I can't thank you all enough for what you do. Lastly, it's not possible for a preschool teacher to take care of 17 other kids with 17 other needs and to not have the help and the coordination of the AEA and all the services that they are bringing into the classroom. Again, that team and coordinated effort. It's an entire team to take care of our children. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for sharing that. And I can relate to your personal story as well. So thank you for joining tonight.
Thank you, Liz. And I just wanted to say, from one mama to another, you're not just a mom. You are Logan's mom, and you're an incredible advocate. So thank you, and call yourself a mom. You've got many degrees behind that name. So good. Josephine Blazik.
Yes, hi, hello. All right, well, my name is Josephine Blazik, and I attend Burlington Community High School, which is serviced by the Great Prairie AEA. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself and everyone who receives services from the AEAs. I believe that they are a vital part of the education system in more ways than one. They provided me with services and equipment that I have needed for about 14 years of schooling, and I've made many lifelong friends and support systems from that. I mean, I'm signed with a college to go to soccer, and I've received multiple scholarships for both athletics and academics, and I could not have done it without their help. I mean, when I was 14, my parents moved, 14 months old, actually, not years, but when I was 14 months old, my family moved from Michigan to Iowa. That's about a 600-mile distance, and they didn't really have that many resources on how to support a child who was deaf, especially at such a young age. And the AEA was a fantastic resource. I mean, we had an audio booth on site for hearing tests, ongoing testing to make sure I was meeting the milestones I needed to reach, and even a speech pathologist to correct a lisp I had. I mean, I had early learning support and summer speech services throughout my whole life. My parents didn't have to travel hours away for these services that were in town, less than 3 miles from the school I went to. These tools have helped me become a successful person, and they were gifted to me by these gracious people because it's their job and passion to help those who cannot help themselves, either in some aspect of their life or another. I mean, as a deaf student, most people are not aware of the accommodations and equipment necessary. I can remember being in class, and in my IEP, it says I receive preferential seating. Most people do not understand what preferential seating is, nor do they understand how to fulfill that need. And the people at the AEA taught me that I have to advocate for myself and not only tell the teachers that this is what preferential seating is, but how to advocate and tell them this is what it means in a very nice way. And this bill could potentially remove those people from our education system. And the AEAs use a very large chunk of their funding to support children and students with disabilities, learning disorders, and many more. How are schools and families going to pay for those same services? The reality is that most can't or won't. And now this bill is preventing students from receiving, as promised by our governor, an education that will best prepare them for a successful life. School districts, no matter their size, cannot replicate what the AEAs do all across the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. And I hope you go back into the chat and see all the love that was just given to you there. Thank you for sharing your story tonight.
All right.
Yes. Barb Wheeler, you are next.
Okay, so my camera's not working, I apologize, but I am just going to ask some questions. So, you know, from where we got from where we were in January, on January 9th to here has been insane. So the governor alluded to the fact that some people were displeased with the AEAs. In the condition of the state, she stated she talked with, quote, dozens of stakeholders. So besides the, quote, dozens of people she spoke with, was there some sort of survey that showed overwhelming dissatisfaction with the agencies? And if not, isn't this a moot point? Also within the condition of the state address, she stated there are 4 options. The first is to stay with your local AEA. The second is using neighboring AEAs, which if we're worrying about efficiency, this doesn't really seem conducive to that. Next was contract with a private company or partner with other districts. And lastly, this is a quote, they can just spend more money on special education teachers and put the dollars right in the classroom. The last option is not viable or legal. Unless you have educators who act as all of these things that our students require, OT, PT, SLP, etc. So unless, of course, the governor is suggesting this is an option to simply not provide these legally required services, which highlights a significant lack of understanding. It's just very concerning to me that this is where we are. I mean, I vehemently believe all districts within my local AEA agency will utilize their services. But if they choose not to, or they're enticed by this money that may come or may not with the flow through dollars, I'm just wondering if people are really thinking about the ramifications of this. So let's say our big districts leave 1 or 2. So that would leave our small districts. And there are several within my area. If there's less funding to procure the services the AEAs provide, that means there's less funding to staff the AEAs, which is limiting the support to small schools. How will schools afford the services they need? Another question I have is, what if the district simply cannot afford them? Is it suggested they just be out of compliance? And if so, who will be reprimanded? Will it be the special education teachers? Because if I was one, I'm not going to be signing a legal document. Is it the school districts? Or is it just suggested they join with other small schools and still have less specialists readily available to them, just part-time? I think that people really need to note it or realize that demographically we have a high transient population. So if this is I think Savannah kind of alluded to this earlier. So what are school districts supposed to do if they have a child coming in January who needs OTPT and that's not something that they've serviced for? So then are these school districts going to have to spend money on these specialists even if they don't require them? Because that's what the AEA is for. It supports that. So additionally, schools will be locked in for 2 years. So if larger districts, if they contract out and they're displeased, they're stuck, which means that the smaller schools are stuck with this least amount. So or this less amount of money. So I'm forward thinking, you know, the AEAs are open, they're encouraging having this review, but I just feel like this whole process has been so deceitful. I mean, I value our legislative process. I do. And the fact that we had this proposal to having a review, to having this proposal that completely dismantled 2/3 of these integral parts of the AEA. It just is so crazy to me. And then with the jobs posting already, and it's like there was no time for our legislative process to even take place. So that's concerning. And I just think now more than ever, the one thing we can learn about this bill being so wildly unpopular, it warranted an amendment prior to going to the committees, is that it's so dangerous to reform education so quickly and recklessly. Could you imagine what would have happened if this would have joined bipartisan there? This is not a political thing. I mean, Republicans, Independents, Democrats alike, this is so unpopular. So it is just perplexing to me why a review wouldn't preface this type of extreme action. And then I think to myself, if this does move to the Department of Education, that means there will be no legislative process for that. And I think the governor has really kind of showed what she's interested in. I mean, she first said we don't need educational services. So if she doesn't want that now, but now she does, if this goes to the Department of Education, nothing's safe. That's it.
Thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate all the comments and the questions as well.
Thank you, Barbara. Nancy Baker Curtis, are you there?
I am. Thank you. I am a public school teacher. I am a school board member. I am a partner with the ARC of Iowa. I coordinate and advocate with a group known as Changing Spaces Iowa. And I serve on Child Service Family Advisory Council. 2 beautiful children, both of who are public school educated. I'm a proud member of the ISEA, Educators Association. And I would just like to call to action every single person here on this call today. Our stories are important, but the governor is working very hard to pit teachers against services. Because as an educator, I can tell you, we are horribly mistreated and underpaid. And so I would encourage you all to reach out to your own education life, asking them to talk and share out about the services that they receive through the AEA. I remember growing up in rural Iowa and watching the AEA van deliver videos and films to the small rural school that I attended. Imagine that I would eventually need those same AEA services as a child with a speech impediment. I need you to reach out to your school board members, and I need you to reach out to your superintendents, and I need you to ask them to be advocates and vocal voices and talk about why eliminating flow-through funding is a bad option, not just for some school districts and not just for some kids, but for all kids. Because when it impacts one Iowa school, it impacts all of our Iowa schools, just like it did with vouchers. And we may not be able to the governor from doing this bill, but hopefully we'll be able to pump the brakes. We'll be able to put some review processes in place. We'll be able to get actual parents who utilize those services and educators in front of committees and in subcommittee hearings in order. And it won't just be a one-sided argument. It will be people who have actual stories to tell. I'm grateful that my son will continue to receive his Medicaid services at his school. But I will tell you that the goals and the purposes and the therapeutic service he receives privately and in his academic setting are entirely different. And it is the complementary aspect of those services that help him grow and thrive today. To go from a child who could not crawl in 2018 when we started the Iowa school system to a child who uses its reverse walker to run through the public school hallways today. And so I would just ask you to be very poignant with the people in your life and give them the script and tell them exactly who to email, because it's that when we do that, we can evoke really big change. Thank you for all coming here this evening.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. Chelsea Jensen. Are you still here, Chelsea?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't get it unmuted. Hi, so my son is in rural Iowa, so a very small town. And when he was 2 years old, he was diagnosed with complex partial epilepsy, which affected his speech and his brain. Sorry, I'm reading off my notes. And I contacted the early childhood team, and he was able to get evaluated right away. And when he would speak, it was only one word and very garbled, so you couldn't understand him at all. But within 4 years, he's now 6, and he's about to be staffed out thanks to the amazing speech pathologist team. I'm a very strong advocate for my children, and they've listened to all my child's concerns and needs and have created an individualized plan that was incredibly successful for my child. So right now he's currently meeting those speech benchmarks and meeting his expectations for the kindergarten classroom. He has gained that confidence, all thanks to everybody working together and seeing him as a whole child in order to find the best fit program for his needs. So I just want to thank the speech pathologists and AEA social workers who has given him the time, the confidence, and believed in him. And their services don't go unnoticed, and they mean the world to everybody. So
Thank you, Chelsea, so much for joining and sharing your story tonight.
Thank you. Erin Schmidt. Looking for names. Erin, are you here? Or is Hannah back? Nope, that's okay. You can message me if you are. Sarah Castile.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay? Hi, I am a mother of a beautiful 6-year-old little boy who receives AEA services through the Panorama School District. I'm sorry, I'm so passionate about this. Without,
It's okay.
Without the early intervention services that the AEA team provided to my son, he would not be where he is today. And I know that through the Medicaid services, he will continue to get those services at school. However, I am very concerned that the 12 professionals that we currently have that work with my son on a regular basis through AEA, the level and quality of care that he is going to get in the school is going to be greatly affected. My son is the only child in our school district that is blind or has a vision impairment. And so I work very closely with the School of the Blind, and I know that he will have those services continued. However, there are other services that this bill will greatly impact that I am very concerned about. And one of those is the mental health and counseling perspective. Our neighboring school district just a week and a half ago experienced a horrendous tragedy that the AEA counselors and trauma response team have spent the last 14 days there helping the community heal, and they will continue to be staffed as the Perry School District goes back to school. And I'm very concerned on what the plan is to replicate the integration that the AEA teams have within our school districts. That is something that that our children have today. And is it perfect? No, absolutely not. That's why as parents are so integrated into the IEP process and to the services. But I think there is great value in having that, and having the advocacy of this team here, I think is very important. You know, back in the 80s, I was a gen ed student who was a little slow at reading, and because of the Grantwood AEA staff members coming in and doing early intervention screenings, I was able to be diagnosed early on with dyslexia and have my reading skills improved and have those integrated services without ever needing an IEP myself or a 504. And I am fortunate enough to say that because of the early intervention services as a gen ed student, which is currently being proposed to be removed, I was able to be on peer, on grade level with my reading and comprehension skills. I have since graduated. I'm the only person in my family to have gone on and gotten a college degree. And I have spent the better part of my professional life actually traveling the world and speaking for a living. And as someone with a speech disorder, that is hardly unheard of. So I think my personal story is a testament to the strength of the AEA. And, you know, my son's team is amazing and we love our school district, but I fear for our small school district if this bill goes through, because our amazing professionals are not going to have the resources strongly integrated into the system that we have today.
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing, and congratulations on all of your amazing successes and going through all of that in your own life. So thank you for coming here and having the bravery to speak up today.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Monica Janelle.
Hello, thank you for having me. I just wanted to speak on past situations. So in 2011, I moved from Wisconsin to Iowa, and we had to have everything checked on again about our boys. I have 3 sons, 2 that have disabilities, and one of them is autistic with intellectual disabilities, and the other one has intellectual disabilities based on a meningitis that he was born with. So they have had the AEA for years. My oldest now is 22. My middle one that had the meningitis is 20. And they got services through the AEA very strongly. It was wonderful for speech. Sebastian, my oldest, did not speak until he was close to 4 years old. When we moved here, he was in 4th grade and he didn't speak well, had a lot of issues. We were told by several different people that he would not graduate high school. We were told that he would not speak and that he had a lot of other things. The AEA got involved with us when we moved here. And today, Sebastian and Simon are both attending University of Iowa, the UI Reach program. They have been in a lot of leadership opportunities, and Sebastian was on the homecoming court for University of Iowa this year. And they learned so much through the AEA, through the speech program, especially. We had AEA parent advocates that sat with us and helped us form the IEP that we needed. I was very strong with IEPs because I taught when I was up in Wisconsin, but I taught disability aggression students in middle school. So I dealt with a lot of IEPs, but when I came here, the things were very, very different in Iowa. So to have my autistic son be in a leadership program and is now engaged as well, and going to University of Iowa and doing leadership activities is just fantastic. And that is not by himself. That is not just with mom and dad either. That is actually with the support from the AEA in general. Again, like I said, he didn't speak until he was almost 4 years old. And without the AEA support from the parent advocate, from the AEA in general, helping the teachers figure out what he needed to do next in a class, he would not be where he's at today. I just wanted to speak. So a lot of the things that my kids have gone through have been 100% of the support of the AEA. And not only my kids getting the support from the AEA, but us as parents. Us as parents really rely on the teachings of the AEA and what we needed to do next. And the next steps from going from elementary school to middle school to high school, and even getting ready for a transition to a college level. So
Thank you so much, Monica.
thanks.
Yes, thank you. And last on our list is Carrie Bargloff. Like the last one, chance to butcher your name once. Are you
Hello.
here?
Yep. Hi.
Okay.
I'm just going to read what I wrote here. AEAs have played an important role in my life as an educator and as a parent. For 30 years, I have been a special ed teacher in rural Iowa. Let me introduce my students. My students are children with the most complex medical, behavioral, physical, and educational needs. My students persevere through difficult challenges and have many success stories to share. Stories such as the little girl who was not yet able to verbally speak and learned to use an alternative communication device to communicate, or the story about the little girl who learned to maneuver her own wheelchair and is now able to get to gym class more independently. I could go on and on. My students are successful because of their determination and hard work, but also because of the support of AEAs, classroom staff, and families. My students receive direct and consultative support services from AEA staff. My students need and deserve staff who have an educational background. My students are general education students first and have the right to services that help them close the achievement gap between themselves and their peers. A few years ago, I was blessed to be able to adopt 2 sisters with complex medical, physical, and educational needs. Addison and Angel received specialized services and support from the AEA. Speech pathologists from the AEA work with both girls as they learn to speak using their communication devices. A physical therapist from the AEA works with both girls on taking steps, sitting up unassisted, and developing strength. An occupational therapist from the AEA works with them on developing their fine motor skills, including learning to eat more independently and accessing educational materials and their environment. It is imperative that both girls continue to have staff who fully understand the educational model and are able to work in person with them. Rural Iowa is a wonderful place to raise a family. Yet unfortunately, due to Medicaid cutbacks, children in rural Iowa often have to go to a larger city to receive additional specialized services. This results in children having to miss school and parents having to miss work. Both of these can be detrimental to the child and the family. AEAs help provide equity of services so children living in rural areas have the same benefits as those living in larger cities. Iowa must continue to meet the needs of all students. The specialized pediatric services and support provided by our local AEAs need to continue to be part of Iowa schools. Teachers need to continue to be able to collaborate with AEA staff to meet the needs of our students. AEA staff know and understand education and need to continue to provide quality training opportunities for school staff. AEA staff are vital members of a team working with students, families, and school personnel. The success story of Addison, Angel, and every student in an Iowa public school can only be written if the right supports are in place. As a public school teacher and parent of children with complex special needs, I support and stand with our local AEAs. Local AEAs must continue to be part of the educational team for our children.
Thank you, Carrie, for being our last person on tonight and leaving us with that really meaningful sharing. So thank you for being here tonight.
And I'll just want to close by thanking our hosts. I might come back to them in a minute, but I do want to say that I have been keeping track of who's asking questions in your comments too. And we have gotten several questions, and we had one that came in this afternoon about the data that the governor referenced in her condition of the state address that's being used to justify this proposal. And so we will forward your questions on to her office and the Department of Ed to see if we can get some answers back, and then we will let you all know through email, and we will again be posting all of your comments and whatever questions we can gather and answer on our website, and we'll notify you through email because we have all of your emails because you signed up for this webinar or for this town hall. And we're so glad you did. Thank you everybody for sharing. Those of you who weren't able to share, remember we have written comments, and that part of our website will stay up. We haven't talked about when we will take that down, but it'll stay up for a while because we will be working on this issue for a while. So again, thanks so much to our invited speakers, our last minute speakers who came in. We're so glad that you were able to join us, to the leadership of our state agencies, and for our great hosts, Heather, Wendy, and Emma. And we really appreciate you all as advocates and all that you're doing for children of Iowa. So thank you. And we, if you have suggestions for ways that we can help you in the future, please let us know. Good night, everybody.